Oh, unbelievable.
Squash, a lightning-fast, highly competitive racket sport that originated in England in the 1830s. Since then, it has become a global phenomenon, with the current top 50 players representing 19 different nations. Today, there are over 20 million players worldwide, with the fastest growing market being the United States. In 2003, Forbes magazine rated squash the #1 healthiest sport. And from 2008 to 2013, the number of US players increased by 114%. In that same period, junior squash participation jumped by over 400%.
We've seen massive growth in squash in the last decade in the US. In some parts of the country, in California, we're seeing 300% and 400% growth year over year. In junior squash, it's been 20 to 30% year over year for the last 6 or 7 years. So to have very accessible courts for the entire community is really key to our future success at US Squash.
If you were to go to Boston, you'd see approximately 15 to 20 facilities, all for different purposes, private clubs, schools, universities, with as many as a dozen courts at each site. In Portland, we have 2 courts for all of those purposes. That's just crazy.
Introducing Portland Community Squash. We're bringing together adult leagues, junior leagues, with middle and high school participation, and a robust urban program, all under one roof, right here in Portland, Maine. Over the past 2 decades, we've seen urban squash programs blossom in US cities, from the East Coast to the West. Programs like Squash Busters in Boston, City Squash in New York, and Rack It Up in Detroit are all part of a collective called the National Urban Squash and Education Association. These programs share a model where students learn the game of squash in the context of a rigorous after-school team environment with a focus on academics. To date, the NUSIA programs across the US have seen a 93% college graduation rate. Portland Community Squash will be located in the West Bayside neighborhood, where 55% of the families live below the poverty line. Our urban program will be called Rally Portland and will help some of the city's less fortunate and newly immigrated students.
The program stays with kids, not just through the middle school and high school, but seeing them enroll in college and graduate from college.
Squash gave me the drive to want to win on and off the court.
The same skills that you use for squash, you sort of use in everyday life.
A lot of them are more self-aware and more self-assured than some of our other student athletes that we see.
Rally Portland will emphasize academics, sportsmanship, and help develop young civic-minded leaders of tomorrow. In addition to our urban program, PCS also has a junior squash league for students from the greater Portland area. An opportunity to learn the game and compete with national rankings, all under the guidance and coaching of our staff. There's also the opportunity for individual schools to field their own teams, with PCS providing court time and coaching. We see a future where Portland has several schools competing on a national level. It turns out there is one collegiate squash position for every high school player in the US, making squash an unparalleled recruitment path to top universities. Portland Community Squash will be instrumental in making these opportunities very real for our junior players.
Portland Community Squash is a great example of how our community is helping one another. This is about giving back. It's about teaching not just the game, but the value of our community.
Lastly, Portland Community Squash will meet a demand long overdue. A premium, high-end membership experience, not unlike private clubs in other cities, but at a very affordable, non-exclusive rate. Everyone in our community has a role to play in this project's success. If you're behind us, please share your information to join our cause. From students to parents, squash enthusiasts to corporate sponsors, by helping fulfill a growing demand in a growing city, we can help our kids get a better shot.